in a world with any amount of technology, I still think we've got to, it is our destiny in some sense to stay on this curve. And we still need to go figure out what's next and after the next hill and after the next hill. And it would be, my perception is that there is some long-term societal change happening here. And I think it makes us less happy too.
Right. It may make us less happy. But what I'm saying is, if the human species does integrate with technology, wouldn't a great way to facilitate that to be to kind of feminize the primal apes and to sort of downplay the role?
You mean like should the AGI phthalates
well,
into
maybe
the world?
I don't know if it's AGI. I mean, maybe it's just an inevitable consequence of technology, because especially the type of technology that we use, which does have so much plastic in it. And then on top of that, the technology that's involved in food systems, preservatives, all these different things that we use to make sure that people don't starve to death. We've made incredible strides in that. There are very few people in this country that starve to death.
Yeah.
It's not a primary issue, but violence is a primary issue.
Yeah.
But our concerns about violence and our concerns about testosterone and strong men and powerful people is only because
we need to protect against
need
others.
to protect against other same things.
Is that really the only reason?
Sure. I mean, how many like incredibly violent women are out there running gangs?
No, that part for sure.
Yeah.
Clearly not very many. What I meant more is that the only reason that society values like strong masculinity?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a biological imperative, right? And I think that biological imperative is because we used to have to defend against incoming tribes and predators and animals, and we needed someone who was stronger than most to defend the rest. And like, that's the concept of the military. That's why Navy SEAL training is so difficult. We want the strongest of the strong to be at the tip of the spear. But that's only because there's people like that out there that are bad. If artificial general intelligence and the implementation of some sort of a device that changes the biological structure of human beings to the point where that is no longer a concern. Like, if you are me and I am you and I know this because of technology, violence is impossible.
Yeah, look, by the time, if this goes all the way down the sci-fi path and we're all like merged into this one single like planetary universal whatever
Hive
consciousness,
mind.
then yes, you don't
need testosterone.
But
especially if we can reproduce through other methods. Like, this is the alien hypothesis, right? Like, why do they look so spindly and without any gender, and when they have these big heads and tiny mouths?
They don't need physical strength.
They don't need physical strength. They have some sort of a telepathic way of communicating. They probably don't need sounds with their mouths, and they don't need this urge that we have to conquer and to spread our DNA. Like, that's so much of what people do, is these reward systems that were established when we were territorial apes.
There's a question to me about how much you can ever get rid of that. If you make an AGI and it decides, actually, we don't need to expand, we don't need more territory, we're just like happy, at this point, you, me, it, the whole thing all together, all merged in, we're happy here on Earth. We don't need to get any bigger, we don't need to reproduce, we don't need to grow, we're just going to sit here and run. That sounds like a boring life.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that would be the logical conclusion. I think the logical conclusion would be they would look for problems and frontiers that are insurmountable to our current existence, like intergalactic communication and transportation.
What happens when it meets another AGI the other galaxy over?
What happens when it meets an AGI that's 1 million years more advanced?
Or that.
Like, what does that look like? Yeah. That's what I've often wondered, if we are... I call ourselves the biological caterpillars that create the electronic butterfly, that we're making a cocoon right now. We don't even know what we're doing. And I think it's also tied into consumerism. Because what does consumerism do? Consumerism facilitates the creation of newer and better things, because you always want the newest, latest, greatest. So you have more advanced technology in automobiles and computers and cell phones and all of these different things, including medical science.
That's all for sure true. The thing I was like reflecting on as you were saying that is, I don't think I'm not as optimistic that we can or even should overcome our biological base to the degree that I think you think we can. And, to even go back one further level, like I think society is happiest where there's like roles for strong femininity and strong masculinity in the same people and in different people. Um, and I don't like, and I don't think a lot of these like deep seated things are gonna be able to get pushed aside very easily and still have a system that works. Like, sure, we can't really think about what if there were consciousness in a machine someday or whatever, what that would be like. And maybe I'm just like thinking too small mindedly, but I think there is something about us that has worked in a super deep way. And it took evolution a lot of search space to get here. But I wouldn't discount it too easily.
But don't you think that cave people would probably have those same logical conclusions about life and sedentary lifestyle and sitting in front of a computer and not interacting with each other except through text?
Well,
I mean, isn't that like what you're saying is correct?
how different do you think our motivations are today, and kind of what really brings us genuine joy, and how we're wired at some deep level differently than cave people? Clearly, lots of other things have changed. We've got much better tools. But how different do you think it really is?
I think that's the problem, is that genetically at the base level, there's not much difference. And that these reward systems are all, we interact with all of them, whether it's ego,
Yeah.
lust,
Yeah.
passion, fury, anger, jealousy, all these different things.
And you think some people will upload and edit those out?
Yes. Yeah, I think that our concern with losing this aspect of what it means to be a person, this like the idea that we should always have conflict and struggle because conflict and struggle is how we facilitate progress, which is true, right? And combating evil is how the good gets greater and stronger if the good wins. But my concern is that that is all predicated on the idea that the biological system that we have right now is correct and optimal. And I think one of the things that we're dealing with the heightened states of depression and anxiety and the lack of meaning and existential angst that people experience, a lot of that is because the biological reality of being a human animal doesn't really integrate that well with this world that we've created.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And I wonder if the solution to that is not find ways to find meaning with the biological, vessel that you've been given, but rather engineer those aspects that are problematic out of the system to create a truly enlightened being.